First episode.
Welcome to episode 76 of the Backlot 605 podcast. I am your host. I am Casey Kelderman. Join with me, amongst other people, is my co-host, Mr. Brian Mensing.
How's it going?
It's going great. Brian, guess what?
What?
We're not alone.
We're not alone.
We're not alone to be cursed.
You're not alone.
And you heard him there in his angelic voice. Andy, the fat dude. Andy Heller, how's it going?
Hey guys, I'm doing well. How are you guys doing?
We're doing great. We are also joined by Dominic Wieneke, who I think is having a few problems with his microphone, but we're figuring this out.
I think I'm here. Am I here?
Yeah. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. That's the good thing. That's all we need.
That is like how every conversation starts right now. Can you hear me?
Your camera's coming through okay. How about the microphone? Can you pull it back?
Is this too close?
Put some pants on.
No.
No.
I'm supposed to be wearing pants?
Yeah.
This is a sweatpants only bonanza.
I don't wear pants unless I go
This
outside.
is a no pants bonanza.
No pants zone.
Yeah, let's get off the no pants zone and get into the cursed film zone. This week we're going to be talking about some cursed films because why not? Why not? This is a fun topic. Gets us a little bit out of talking about the films themselves and talking about the spooky legends that are part of these movies. And Shudder just released this great 5-part documentary series talking about the cursed films. So that's kind of where we're going to start the conversation, and then we're going to expand upon that after. But I know, Andy, did you have a chance to finish the Cursed Films documentary series?
I did.
Okay.
I did. I watched all of the episodes, and I the ones I really enjoyed. I thought they were fantastic. I was really surprised with the one that I liked the least. I'll talk about that later.
Is it maybe because it's one of your favorite movies ever?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
that's it.
It's Brian, I know you watched 2 of the episodes. Dom, the horror director, does not have Shudder.
Oh, no.
Which is just weird.
Strange, right?
Actually, right behind me here, I've got the book on the Twilight Zone accident and The Crow.
Ooh.
There's one on The Exorcist. So yeah, it's kind of appropriate that that's my background.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I'm gonna definitely be looking to you when we get to like the Crow and the Twilight Zone episodes, because I like we talked about it a little bit before we started, that we're not really sure if there's a curse or it's just shit happens on movie sets. That's
Right.
what happens. But
It's all of that.
yeah, so briefly, let's talk about the series a little bit and what we thought of it. Andy, do you want to kick it off, since you briefly mentioned the episode that was your least favorite of the series?
Yeah, so for me, the show got infinitely better. I was really concerned when the first episode, which was The Exorcist, one of my favorite movies of all time, was a little disappointing. It was just talking about exorcisms, which, yeah, that's great for another show, but it didn't really do anything to kind of flesh out any of the curse with that particular movie. But as the series went on, some of them got really good, really insightful. I particularly enjoyed The Crow and the Twilight Zone episodes. I thought those 2 were fantastic. The Poltergeist one as well. It was funny because the 2 movies about like demonic possession and like the rise of the Antichrist, those 2 ones were the worst episodes, and the ones with like the supernatural elements, those were the ones I liked the most, and
like the real life tragedies behind on the sets with those. Yeah,
right. And I was really, I'm going to say the word excited, but that feels inappropriate to watch the Twilight Zone episode because I remember there was the E True Hollywood Story way back in the day about the Twilight Zone movie that I thought that was really fascinating, and it's been a really interesting topic of conversation. So I'm glad Dominic is on here, because I'm really interested to hear, because he has the book, which I've wanted to read for a long time, and hearing that he is a scholar about this is really fun for me. So I'm super excited to hear what Dom has to say about the stuff.
He's like, not only did I see the movies, but I got the books to back it up.
That's right.
He was doing his old Vanna White thing for a split second there.
I've done a college paper about, I forget what the topic was, but I chose the safety on set, so I used the Twilight Zone and the Crow as reference. So, and I couldn't find my original paper, but this awesome book called Outrageous Conduct, which I realized is out of print, and I looked just going for it. It's going up for $700 right now.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a little pricey.
Be very careful with that book.
Yeah.
Don't break the binding.
It could save my life someday. But anyway.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Andy. I think the Exorcist episode of the series is probably the weakest of them all. Again, these episodes are only 30 minutes long, but that one felt like it was padding more than half of its runtime with actual exorcisms. And
right.
I mean, it was kind of with a guy who was a little hokey and was like, yeah, I'm getting paid to do this. I'm like, I mean, that's not really what The Exorcist was, but I get what you were going for. But yeah, I thought the other 4 episodes were really, really great and really strong in this series. The Omen was more of what I was expecting the series to be, because they kind of talked about how it affected so many different people, with how many different accidents happened on set or before the film was wrap production or after production. But then the last 3 episodes of the series really pulled at the heartstrings with their real life tragedies, like you said, with Poltergeist and the Omen and the Twilight Zone. And the one I knew the most about was the Twilight Zone incident. And then the Crow, everybody knows the story of Brandon Lee on the Crow, but the Poltergeist stuff I didn't really dive too deep in, besides hearing about, oh no, they use real skeletons in Poltergeist. I'm like, yeah, that's cool, whatever. But when it gets into the actual tragedies that happened because of this, it really did pull out my heartstrings, and makes you pretty much, in the last couple of episodes, they pretty much call out, yeah, having a curse on a movie is bullshit. This is real life, and this stuff happens to people.
Yeah.
And just think if they would have not, finished the movie, a lot of the guys didn't want to make for Poltergeist, that if they would just stop and said, nope, we're just going to can this because of everything that's going on.
With the it was a Poltergeist 3 that they were talking about not finishing production on.
Yeah, because she didn't make it through when finishing of the filming, so they had to use a body double, and
I'm like,
her face.
Again, you get to that with the last 3 episodes, and you're like, would you want to finish the movie after something like that happened? Like in Poltergeist 3, if this preteen girl dies, that's your lead of the film, would you want to finish making that film?
Yeah. Do you do it to honor them, or do you do it because you're going to have that gut rot not doing it?
And again, I think the Crow situation was a little different, because at that point Brandon Lee probably could have said, if I die on set, yeah, continue this. But if it happens to a kid, they're not expecting that. That's a entirely different situation.
Well, I think especially with the Poltergeist, she had died almost halfway through.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So, and the movie definitely shows, because she's the main character, but she disappears halfway, whereas the Crow, they only had maybe a week left, so they didn't have a whole lot of filming. So I think with the Poltergeist thing, they were looking more for, I wouldn't say it's a little bit bigger budget, because it wasn't, but I think it was part of a franchise, they just had to basically get it out, and this was back in, was it 88? 87, where not really much had happened like that, where you have a major star die in the middle of production.
Yeah, and again, they 1988 was Poltergeist 3, but they mentioned it in the doc that the director was like, I don't want to finish this, but the studio is literally telling me, no, you have to finish this, otherwise
you don't have a choice.
We'll get someone else to finish it for us.
Right.
Which is that's a shitty situation to be in.
Right. And Poltergeist 3 isn't a bad film. It's got, I mean, the whole thing with the mirrors is still to this day, I'm trying to figure out how they did some of those shots because this was, pre visual effects, or at least the visual effects that we know. So I don't know, some of those shots are really intriguing. So,
They had to be creative back then.
right.
So let's briefly talk about some of the alleged curses on some of these movies. So let's just start with how the series goes. Let's start with what The Exorcist had for some of the cursed things that happen on set, or how the film would be considered cursed. So the one that always sticks out to me, and it's not really like that it was cursed, it was just that William Friedkin wanted to do things really practically on set, is him basically putting Reagan's room to freezing, which is, I'm like, that's just fun filmmaking. It sucks for the actors to be in that type of environment, but that's just, I mean, fun filmmaking to do, to get people's breaths when CGI was not an option at that point.
Yeah.
A lot of it was all very practical, and there were a lot of injuries that kind of came out of that need to be practical, which not so much a curse, just more of a dick move to try and make this movie.
Which Friedkin's been kind of known to be kind of a dick filmmaker.
Right.
Well, yeah, and they talk about it with Ellen Bernstein gets pulled back and throws it what was she, broke her back or hip, or I'm like, that's just get a freaking stunt person in there and not hurt anyone. Why do you need to do that? Yeah. And then same with having a child, Linda Blair, in sitting up in bed and rocking back and forth and side to side, and the mechanism they used malfunctioned. I'm like, again, why is Linda Blair in that situation? Again,
because you want it to look authentic.
Again, I guess you can argue that because The Exorcist is one of the greatest movies ever made, and it wouldn't happen without those two things occurring. But again, safety should be the number one priority.
Right. Yeah, I mean, if they would have, actually done something about it, it wouldn't have taken away from the film.
Yeah.
Right.
You hope not, anyway.
They happened to touch it all on the death of Jack McGrowan.
A little bit.
See, he was the only one that actually died during production, but they had already filmed most of his stuff, I believe, if not all of it. So, which I always thought was weird in the film, that when they talk about Burke Dennings dying, I'm like, he actually died during the film.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's one other thing that I kind of find interesting in the legend of The Exorcist, is that the entire sets were all there was a fire on set, and the only one that was left standing was Reagan's room. I'm like, that's kind of just fun because it just adds to the legend of what was happening in this, and oh no, the spooky little girl's room is the only one that didn't burn down.
We have to work on what you define as fun. I'm just saying.
It's kind of fun to think about. No one got hurt in the fire. It's just fun.
Everything burned down, but that one spot.
But her room, it's spooky.
Spooky.
All right. So let's, obviously, The Exorcist, it's a classic. Andy loves the film. We all love the film. The Omen, though. The Omen. First of all, this is the one where I'm like, yeah, I think this movie might be cursed with just how many coincidences happened in this movie, and especially during the production of it. The one that sticks out to me the most is that there was a car accident, and in doing so, there was a sheet of glass that decapitated someone while they were by a sign that said Omen, OMMEN 666. I'm like, that's weird.
Yeah.
That might not be a coincidence.
Now, do we have photographic proof, or is people just making stuff up as time has gone along and just modified the story? Playing a little bit of game of telephone to what it was to what everybody thinks it is now.
I have heard of this one before. Again, the glass decapitating someone unfortunately did happen in real life.
Right.
But the Omen 666 is not an actual sign that anyone has ever found before.
Mhm.
But there is a town called Omen from wherever they were shooting, and there was probably a 6.66 kilometer sign somewhere at some point. So
I think
again,
that was kind of added to the legend, but
yeah.
the whole, even in the film when the reporter is decapitated with that sheeted glass, that's still frightening.
Yeah, that is one. Like, The Omen, I think, is still one of the scariest movies ever made. That's one of the reasons why, that decapitation scene, and then also the nanny, the caretaker or whatever, when she jumps out the window. I'm like, oh my god!
For you, Damien. It's
Yeah.
all for you.
She just crashes through the window underneath. I'm like, oh my god, that's
It's
amazing.
very brutal, and just the way it's edited too. It just still to this day, I'm like, that gets me because it's very brutal.
Mm-hmm.
It's a movie too that it's like it. You know, like when you look at the movie, the poster and read off the credits, that it's a Richard Donner movie, but associated with everything else that he has made and he has done, this is such it's so interesting that he directed this movie to me, because it doesn't go in line with the rest of his filmography at all, and
No.
it's such a good, it's such a really well constructed horror movie that yeah, it's just funny where these kind of genius ideas of horror come from, and how you don't necessarily have to be a horror specialist to kind of come up with these great works. So the thing that really stood out to me, and I'll kind of bridge, I think I mentioned it earlier, but they talk in this episode about how a movie can specifically be cursed. And if you can be on the outside and make an incantation where you're cursing a film. And the way that they try and tell this story is by having this like, I don't remember what his technical term was. I think it was just a black magician put a curse on a movie that they don't say what it is. They just have him put a curse on the movie, and then at the very end of the episode, they show him putting this curse on the movie, but they beep out, censor what the name of the movie is. And as soon as I watched that, I was like, what movie? Like, what is this? What's going to hell? We got to keep an eye on the news now for a little while to find out like what franchise just gets completely sunk because of some crazy ass curse. But
I think I have your answer, Andy.
Black Widow.
No, 2020.
Yeah, there you go.
The entire year of 2020.
Way to go, Black Magician.
Yeah, that's some like Zach Bagans level of shit they're trying to pull, I think.
Wait, because when did they make that episode, or when was this all? Because I'm just picturing like, well, depending on when they put that all together and whatnot, and now all of a sudden we're all sitting at home trying to not die from pandemics. That I'm like, well, he did take care of the movie industry right now.
Yeah, everything, whatever movie.
I'm worried with how many movies Andy's watched in his life that he has watched this movie now. I'm scared for your well-being, because this guy cursed a movie you probably have seen.
I know. Gives me the creeps.
Yeah, it should. Well, some of the other things that happened, a lot of plane accidents were because of the Omen curse, including a plane that Gregory Peck was on got struck by lightning, and then a plane that some of the cast or that was supposed to be part of like a scene in the movie crashed and killed everyone aboard. I'm like, that's just a lot of crazy stuff happening because of one film.
It was like, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, the crashing part, I mean, that one is, odd, but like getting struck by lightning, how many planes get struck by lightning?
Yeah.
Probably more than we don't realize. It's just not enough to do any damage that it makes the news.
Right, exactly.
And not every plane has Gregory Peck on it.
wasn't it also like there was the plane crashed into a car that was like had the producer's family or something inside of it? Wasn't that what the story was? I'm trying to look here and see.
I know that there was let's see, I'm looking it up here. Another producer had a plane struck by lightning as well. Besides, that was on a different flight than Gregory Peck's. So that might be, and again, with a lot of these cursed things, I think it's people are crossing stories that they've heard throughout all these years and trying to put something more into a curse and making it a real thing than it actually probably ever is.
Somebody starts talking about one thing and they remember something from some story and they just start assuming it's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
When you kind of figure back in the 70s when they would shoot films, it was usually like a 90-day shoot or 100-day shoot. So that's a long span of time for random stuff to happen.
Right. That one plane could have been, day one. The other plane could have been day, 80 and be like, but it was the same movie.
Right.
So is every film that's in production right now going to have a curse on it, the 2020 curse?
Yes.
Probably.
I've done it. Ooh, Tenet. Ooh, Tenet.
Everything is just
Mutants curse.
Everything is just gonna bomb. No pun intended.
All right, and we touched on the poltergeist stuff. Did you guys want to add anything to it? I mean, the one thing that really stood out for this always was that they use real skeletons. I'm like, that's fun.
Yeah, but they also made reference about that in the episode, though, too, is that especially then before, whatnot, it was nothing new. Is if you were doing anything that wanted to make it even look remotely authentic, they were donor skeletons.
Why not use the real thing?
No, that's what I'm saying. They were.
Yeah.
They're to get a human but to get a human skeleton, was not uncommon. So it's like, yeah, there was human skeletons in there. Yeah, that's nothing new. Just because it's a scary horror movie that has that in it, they're just trying to find something to be like, this is why it was bad.
Dom, as a filmmaker, have you ever used real skeletons in a movie?
Not yet.
No, but I want to be present for that one.
With the poltergeist, so to me, I think it's more the link of deaths. With the fact that Dominic Dunn was murdered shortly after the first one,
Mm-hmm.
And then the second one, those were kind of coincidental. I mean, the guy who played the preacher was dying of cancer already,
Right.
and then you've got Will Sampson who died of open heart surgery. I'm like, that's kind of a risky thing, And then what was it? The third one, you had Heather O'Rourke. So though, I mean, that's probably one of the only series that I would say is actually cursed.
Yeah.
Because of all the deaths surrounding it.
Yeah, I mean, if you looked at every single movie where there was a death or something like that, especially from the sake of like old age, how many more movies would be deemed cursed? I mean, at that point, you could put Harry Potter in there because Dumbledore changes between the second and third movie because the old man unfortunately passed away because, well, he was an old man.
And
It's a movie that deals with witchcraft. It's got to be cursed.
It's cursed.
See, I told you. All 8 of them.
They all are cursed. Let's see. Let's move on to then. I want to talk about these two a little bit more, and then let's start with the Crow. So, of course, the big conspiracy. I don't want to say conspiracy, but the conspiracy of the curse surrounds Brandon Lee and his tragic passing on set of this movie. So, Dom, you did a research paper on this. Do you want to kind of explain what happened on set and why the film may be quote unquote cursed?
Yeah, basically what happened is they were shooting, and it's a scene that takes place right towards the beginning of the film where Brandon Lee's character gets, in the film he gets stabbed. He was originally supposed to get shot. And what they had done is they have a prop gun, which ironically I have one sitting right here. They had it. A prop gun can be deadly because when you shoot a close-up, let me change my wording. When you film a close-up, you will sometimes have, if it's a revolver, you'll have the end of the bullet in the front so it looks like it's loaded.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you actually fire it, they take that piece out, so you just have the casing. Well, what happened with the Crow is that somebody didn't check the gun. They basically had one of the bullets in front, and they put a casing behind it. Even though they're separated, they still become an actual bullet. And when the actor Michael Massey fired it at Brandon Lee, everybody thought it was fake. You know, Brandon Lee went down like he was supposed to, and they called cut. Everybody gets up and moves, and then they realize that Brandon's not moving. And they basically, what had happened, they rushed into the hospital. What had happened is the bullet had basically pierced through his intestines and lodged into his spine. And he bled to death on the operating table. So that actually sparked a huge amount of safety in the film industry, to where prop guns now suddenly became an issue. Even on the last film I worked on with 13 Fanboy, I was in charge of the prop pistol, and approaching it with Dee Wallace, who is a veteran. She was absolutely terrified of them, because she's been on multiple sets where people have gotten shot. So every time she would it was basically only her and I could touch the gun. Nobody else couldn't touch it. I would check the barrel for her. Even though this prop gun, the ending is plugged, it's never shot a blank. I've never shot it. I've always made it, you can fix it in post. So I would check the barrel for her, show her, and then hand it to her. And then when we were done with the take, she would hand it back to me. I would hold on to it. Same routine over and over. And I know she got to the point, she's like, I'm sure you're just tired of showing me. And I'm like, if it's making you feel safe. Mm-hmm. But so it did bring about a good change, but unfortunately, you know, Brandon Lee was killed. You know, so there's a lot of actors, like even Tony Todd was on that set, has refused to work with guns since. You know, I think he had done an X-Files episode shortly after that where he wanted nothing to do with the guns even being pointed in his direction at all. So they can be very deadly on set. So they were at least able to finish filming. You know, the footage of actually Brandon getting shot was destroyed after the police reviewed it. Thankfully, back in the days before they would circulate shit online. So there is no footage of that. And a lot of people think in the film, when he gets shot at the conference room table scene where there's bullets flying everywhere, they think that's the scene. It's like, no, it's actually the scene where he's walking in with the grocery bag, and that's where he gets shot. And they, like I said, they changed it in the final version to make it look like a knife is thrown at him, which is why you don't really see him in that scene. Mm-hmm. You know, they were able to finish the film with using stunt doubles and some digital technology at the time. It is kind of impressive for being 1993. You know, so at least they were able to finish it with, you know, preserving Brandon's performance, which is still one of the more amazing aspects of that film. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the series talks about how they used a mask too, like not makeup, but like a cast of Brandon Lee's face, and put that over the actor's face too. So it's like all of the techniques that they used to kind of keep the movie going. Pretty impressive for special effects, but what a shocking tragedy that, like, I mean, totally remember from that time. It was such a big deal. Just, you know, growing up as part of the MTV generation, they talked about it all the time with their little news snippets and things like that. So yeah, crazy.
Can you imagine trying to be that stunt double finishing that? And if he was wearing the mask, just like, I don't know if I want to be this, because now I feel like I'm becoming that. And it probably would spook you even more if you had to be the one to finish that.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of the actors that were there that night, if you kind of look at their IMDb, they didn't work for quite a while after that.
Yeah.
Just because I think it was such a terrifying, impactful thing.
Yeah, and again, that's just one of those stories I grew up with and knowing about was the Brandon Lee tragedy on The Crow, and again, to get that final product out of it after that, I'm like, that's a big props to everybody involved for wanting to continue to make the movie after that had happened. There is one thing from the doc series that I didn't know about until watching it was Michael Berryman was supposed to be in the movie as like the main villain pretty much of the film. And he had everything cut out because of this. And to hear him talk about it was really, really powerful. And his final little monologue at the end of the documentary is just it hits you.
Yeah, that because the Skull Cowboy is actually in the comics, and I became a huge Crow fanatic. That actually in when they came out in '93, in the primitive internet, I searched for that script because I wanted to read that original script. And I remember paying a buddy like $20 to use his printer so I could print it out. The Skull Cowboy is a big featured part, so the fact that they cut out an entire character is amazing. I mean, I think the movie plays fine without the character, but it would have been interesting to see with him in there. I think it would have been a very different, even the franchise following it would have been very different.
Yeah.
All right. Any other final thoughts on the Crow?
Still a fantastic movie to this day.
It is.
Oh yeah. It's a great movie. I feel bad because I didn't know that it was Michael Massey who was the actor who fired off the gun, and I didn't realize that even in his obituary, because they showed, because Michael Massey passed away, but they showed for his obituary the headline as the actor who shot Brandon Lee. Like, no respect, and had to live with that shadow. Probably haunted him his entire life, but he had a successful character actor career, and that obituary still just acknowledged him as the man who shot Brandon Lee.
Yeah, I saw that when he passed away, and I was very upset with that because, I mean, it was only a second film, The Crow, and the fact that it put him basically through therapy. I mean, he had to do a lot to come back from that. And then he was in Lost Highway. I mean, he was on 24. He had a hell of a career that he finally rebuilt himself up. And like you said, that was the headline they went with.
That's the kind of thing, if you ask me, it's like, that's not only disrespectful to him, but that's disrespectful to the movie and disrespectful to Brandon Lee, because, an accident is an accident. It's not like it was premeditated. It's not like this was something he went out his way to do.
Right.
Yeah, and that's it. He basically just was handed the shotgun and did his job, realizing that somebody didn't do their job.
Yeah, and again, people like throwing out conspiracies for the movie, and again with the cursed thing, and I think this is what I give Shudder props for, is that they never call any of these movies cursed. They say that no, these are tragic things that happened in these movies, and doesn't need to be a curse on the movie for this to happen. These are real people, and these are real events, and I applaud them for taking that approach to it. And again, people like throwing out like he was hired by the Chinese mafia to kill Brown. I'm like, come on, people. It was an accident on set. Like, someone actually passed away while making a movie, and take it with some respect, and actually, show that these things can't be taken lightly. Don't be throwing out conspiracy theories because of it. And again, I think the next film we'll talk about has a very similar legacy as The Crow in the Twilight Zone movie. And again, Dom, I'll throw it off to you since you are the resident expert of these.
The scholar.
Have the $700 book.
Go get the book.
I don't even know where I read it in college, and I remember I had to basically do that, the loan system. They had to bring it in from another college, and I stumbled upon this one somewhere, and I immediately, I'm like, I wanted to recognize it because I wanted to read it again, and it's a fascinating look. It goes through the entire sequence of how it happened. Basically, what happened with the Twilight Zone is John Landis was set up to direct his segment. And basically it was Vic Morrow was playing a racist, and they had a Vietnam sequence where he was going to rescue 2 kids underneath a helicopter that was coming down, firing guns, stuff like that. So what they did is they, breaking labor union laws in California, they hired 2 Vietnamese kids off the street, And then they got basically Vic Morrow to carry them through this water as this helicopter's coming over and fireballs going off. Well, what happened is one of the fireballs went off, melted the tail rotor of the helicopter, which forced the helicopter to tip, thus the blades decapitating Vic Morrow and one of the kids, and then it basically fell on top of him and crushed him. So it became this huge trial as far as who was responsible, because Landis, who is not portrayed very well, which, if you know current history with Landis and his son, they're a very troubled family.
Yeah.
Landis was heard basically ordering the helicopter lower and lower and lower, whereas the pilot didn't want to do it, but he did it anyway. So the pilot was brought on trial. Landis, the producers, they were all basically brought up on manslaughter charges. And they all got off, which I don't agree with. I think the helicopter pilot took the brunt of it because he never really worked again. But it's fascinating because it portrays Spielberg in a really bad light as well, because Landis, all he wanted to do was be like Spielberg. You know, Spielberg was the new Hollywood boy. You know, he could do whatever he wanted. And Landis just wanted to be accepted by that. And when the accident happened that night, Frank Marshall, who was the producer on that segment, left immediately. The helicopter fell and he got in his car and he left. And he basically went to Spielberg and said, we have to distance ourselves from this at all. So Spielberg's episode of the Twilight Zone, they shot it within a weekend, and it shows. They wanted nothing to do with this movie anymore. They were just fulfilling their contract. And they kind of portray Spielberg as he's like a little kid. He's like, he just had the hit with E.T. He couldn't be associated with basically killing kids, so he basically took his toys and went home, has never spoken to Landis since. And, I don't know, it's unfortunate because the footage of the accident is out there online, which if you look for it.
It's in the documentary too.
Oh, they filmed it. Okay.
Yeah, I think they cut a little towards the end of the accident, but they
probably
show
for a good reason.
They show quite a bit of it though. And again, when I was first looking up the Twilight Zone accident, and I stumbled upon the footage, I'm like, I don't want to watch. And then again, when they show it in the documentary, it leaves just a pit in your stomach. It's just heart-wrenching to watch. And Dom, you can probably correct me if I'm wrong on the whole Spielberg thing, but did he not flee the country as well, or is that something I've heard along the way?
Him and Frank Marshall, Kathleen Kennedy, they suddenly decided to go start scouting Indiana Jones 2, Temple of Doom. So they suddenly left the country for that. They kind of did escape type of thing, and basically left Landis holding the bag. And it kind of came down to the trial was the helicopter pilot, basically he was doing his job. He was a very trained helicopter pilot, but he was obeying this egotistical director who was going to fire him if he didn't do what he wanted. He also knew that there were 2 kids below him with an actor, which was an unsafe thing. And there was also the guy who made the explosives did too much, more than what was expected. So basically when that tail rotor just melted from the heat, the pilot, he just basically held on and did everything he could to not put it down where he did, but unfortunate. It's a really I wish they would do a reprint on it because it's such a fascinating book, but I don't think they will, because it doesn't portray Spielberg in a very good light, or Landis. Nobody really gets off scot-free in the situation. And I'm thinking when Landis dies, his headline will relate something to the Twilight Zone accident.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The movie Wired, which I haven't seen, about John Belushi's life. Apparently there's a scene where John Belushi from the Blues Brothers, which Landis is a genius for doing the Blues Brothers. But there's supposedly a scene where Landis is talking, and in the background you hear a helicopter. So it was kind of a little nudge to say, yeah.
Let's go back and rewatch
Yeah.
that film.
And again, the documentary doesn't portray John Landis in the brightest of light in it, but I don't think as far as this 30-minute documentary goes, they don't throw all the blame on him either. And I think they kind of give him a little props that he actually went through all the trials and he did attend all the funerals. And I'm like, I don't want to give the guy props for any of this situation, but to at least do that, during this tragedy that happened on your set, that's at least something that you could do that maybe other people did not or would not have done in that situation.
Yeah, but you have to ask yourself though, is he doing that out of respect and owning up to what happened, or is he doing it to try to save face so he continued to keep have a career?
That's exactly what
Which considering like Dom said in regards to the family, I would almost put money on John's doing it so he knows he's got a career the next day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because it came up the whole issue with the kids that they hired illegally. I mean, these were basically immigrants that thought they were getting their chance at Hollywood stardom, and this is what happened. Yeah, it's one of those things. I fought looking for the footage for a long time, and then I did, and I'm just like, it's one of the few things I'm like, I kind of wish I hadn't, because the book described it so vividly that it's actually seeing it is even more horrific.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was the bulk of that episode. There was there's no curse on the Twilight Zone. It's literally a tragedy happened on set, and one of the most famous tragedies, unfortunately, because of this.
Yeah, I mean, I think the film itself, they were able to cut that segment out, and still I think the story is fine. I mean, the rest of the film, George Miller's and Joe Dante's segments are phenomenal, but if you watch Spielberg's under the context of what happened, you can see that they shot it on a weekend, and he had actually even he was doing a different story, but he switched it to the most easiest and safest thing he could do.
Yeah, and again, now I didn't know that before you said it, but now then I think of Spielberg's segment, you're like, yeah, you can tell he shot that in a weekend. It's the shortest of them all, and it's probably the laziest of them all for sure.
He's like, give me 8 hours, and I'll get this for you.
Yeah.
Is that the kick the can one? Is he the kick the can segment? As a kid, I really enjoyed that one because it was the least scary. It was the one that didn't give me nightmares. Meanwhile, the John Lithgow terror at 10,000 feet. Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah, because this is the kind of thing you should be watching as a child.
Look, listen.
Twilight Zone is relatively kid friendly.
I would say it is.
Yeah. And again, I think if we're talking about the movie itself, George Miller's segment's the best of this film.
Yeah. Yeah, and all these films that they say that are cursed, I mean, I guess I would just call that as accidents, and being on a few sets where accidents have happened, thankfully no deaths, but it happens. You're rushing, you're suddenly get careless. I mean, for me, when I was doing Death Threat, I missed a step, twisted my ankle, ended up shooting that whole night, but then for the next week, my ankle was the size 3 times bigger than it needed to be, but it was carelessness, it just happens.
That brings up another really interesting point that they talked about on that documentary too, was they also spent a lot of time with Lloyd Kaufman and then the trauma pictures, and how his 3 rules are no harm to people, no harm to property or people's things, and make a good movie. And he's showing off these signs, and it's the first 2 rules are really big, and then the make a good movie is really small at the bottom. And I was like, yeah. And he was telling people when they showed the clips, no, hey, don't run, just walk. We don't want anybody to get hurt. And it's for a company like that to have some huge accident, like they said, it would destroy them because they don't have the millions upon millions of dollars to bail them out. But he wants to run a safe ship, not just for the sake of the movie or for the company, but humanity. So yeah, I thought it was really interesting. Also, Lloyd Kaufman in drag the whole time. I mean, sure.
Why not?
I'm doing an interview today. Why not? Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I'll echo that, because when I saw them talking to Lloyd Kaufman, I'm like, yeah, sure, it makes sense to talk to Lloyd Kaufman. He's a big name in the industry, and then to see his rules on set and that the 2 safety rules were bigger than making a good film, which you can tell in the quality of trauma movies, which is all right. But the fact that he takes safety that seriously is really cool and nice to see.
Well, and it's hard. I mean, even on here again on 13 Fanboy, and I'm pretty sure it's going to make the final cut, but we had an actress and an actor, they were doing a fight sequence. Well, the actor missed his mark and he ended up getting punched. Ended up splitting his lip and had to get 3 stitches. You know, it just shit like that happens, and you don't you can't plan for it, but no matter how careful you are, it happens. Yeah.
I broke somebody's nose on stage once because our fight we got just that much too close. Rehearsed it for 2 months. It was like it was closing day too. So it's like we'd already performed like 5 other shows, and here we go. I punched him right in the face. So.
Got a little careless or a little, whatever. And
yeah.
It was premeditated. He didn't like the guy.
Yeah.
Swear to God, Joey Bauer, you deserved it.
He liked Ad Astra. But on this documentary,
I punch him again.
In this documentary, they also spoke with Kane Hodder and talked about some of his accidents that he's obviously had as a stuntman in Hollywood, and it was nice to have that perspective. Was that in the Crow episode that they talked to him?
Yeah,
it was either the Crow or the Twilight Zone one. I can't. Yeah. I think it was the Crow one.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was. Oh, go ahead.
Some people will brag about, I've broken this many bones, and he's like, if you're doing your job right, you shouldn't break anything.
Right. Mm-hmm. Granted, you watch some of those stunts and you wonder how anybody lives through them.
Yeah.
But again, that's why we have professionals that do that for a living. They know how to fall correctly. They know how to take a punch correctly.
Let's talk about some other films that supposedly have a curse on them.
Cursed films.
Yeah, Andy does it better, Casey.
Well, Andy's an actor. I'm not. I am just a schmuck talking about movies.
We're the least qualified to be here, is what you're saying.
What's that?
Between Dominic being the director and Andy being an actor, so we're just the least qualified ones to be talking about this stuff.
Yes, exactly.
I'm glad I'm qualified for some things. That's cool.
Some of the other movies that come to mind for me, one is like The Wizard of Oz curse. Again, I don't think it's really a curse. I think it's more of things happen to people in real life. Like, that's just how life goes. And
get 100 drunken munchkins, something's gonna happen.
Yeah. Well, again, there's the urban legend that there's in one of the scenes where they're walking down the yellow brick road, there's a munchkin hanging in the background. I'm like, no, that's just part of the set. Like, that's not a.
You watch that on VHS when I discovered that, when the big controversy went around. You watch on VHS, it does look like a munchkin. But then you see it on Blu-ray, and now you see it's just a stork spreading its wings.
Yeah.
Right.
You're like, it's amazing what definition will give you when you're not looking at something on an old CRT television.
Exactly. This book that I have here, they talk about the Polanski, Sharon Tate thing. I wouldn't say that's a curse there. Again, that's just more of an unfortunate,
Bad circumstance.
Yeah, exactly. It talks about Macbeth, which I would have to read this to figure out exactly what they're talking about. But there's always like people that die during productions, like directors have passed, or and I guess I wouldn't call them cursed. I would just say it's unfortunate.
Yeah, they mention the two that stand out to me, Apocalypse Now, how Martin Sheen had a heart attack. Didn't Francis Ford Coppola have a heart attack as well? Like just all of the chaos and stress that went with that shoot. Wouldn't so much call it a curse, just call it a stressful, stressful filming process from a director that was demanding a lot in a movie that demanded a lot. But the one that does kind of go, why is this happening? For me, is all of the stuff that's happened to the cast of Superman, with Christopher Reeve's horse accident. For one, but I know that Margot Kidder had a lot of issues that kind of haunted her career. Yeah, those ones, I mean, again, not necessarily a curse, but it's just like, what a series of unfortunate incidents that have plagued these people that were involved with this movie.
Well, and at that point, you're looking at circumstances that happen how much time after that movie that just like,
Right.
oh, these people happen to work together, so it must have stemmed from that movie. I mean, if you look
Right.
at, like, you bring in Christopher Reeve, it's like, by this time he's already made the remake of Village of the Damned.
Yeah.
You know, he's up and walking around. He's not Superman anymore. He hadn't been Superman for a while. You know, that was just a poorly timed accident, and all of a sudden it's just like, oh, but all of this stuff, so it has to be connected.
It's the somewhere in time curse. Ooh.
All those creepy kids from the Village of the Damned got him.
Village of the Damned curse.
Richard Donner bringing that bad juju over from the Omen.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the other one. Superman was kind of the big one everybody always brings up. Even with actors that have played Superman since, they kind of touch on them, but it's more of like, oh, they didn't do anything after they played Superman. I'm like, well, that happens to a lot of people, like
right
in the industry. Like,
No, they just go straight to DVD, like Dean Cain.
Yeah. There is one other one, and it's not a movie that ever got made, but it's one that has a curse surrounding it because it never got made. It is the film called A Took. Basically, so this movie never got made, and it's about the plot. I think is hilarious. An Eskimo. It's about an Eskimo in New York, and it has three big men attached to this at some point or another. John Belushi was attached.
Is that the Confederacy of Dunces? Is that what that's the adaptation of?
I have no.
I might be wrong.
Maybe not. I don't know.
I might be wrong.
Are you wrong?
I'm probably wrong.
I'll look it up. But John Belushi was attached at one point. John Candy was attached, and Chris Farley was attached to this movie.
Ooh, yeah.
So,
maybe of anything, if any of these movies would be deemed cursed, it's that one.
it's the one that didn't get made.
Yeah.
Right.
Again, watch out, Kevin James. Don't attach yourself to this movie.
Or, depending on who you are, read it, Kevin James.
How are we going to get a Grown Ups 4, Andy?
I know.
You're going to have to fill in.
Wait, there's a 3?
I'll do Grown Ups.
When did we get Grown Ups 3?
We'll get a Grown Ups 3.
So
Straight to Netflix.
Would you say that the Fast and the Furious are now cursed because of Paul Walker?
Maybe that's the movie he cursed in this documentary series, was the Fast and the Furious. Brian, you're screwed.
Brian, what do you think about that?
Well, they're still making them, so something's still kind of going right.
There is a movie that is out right now. I think this is what it's called. It's called Antrum, Antrum, and it's actually on Amazon Prime right now. But I feel like the curse with that is manufactured to kind of get people to watch it.
Mhm.
There's a whole history behind this movie that it was supposed to play at a film festival, and the producers died in the process of trying to bring the film to the film festival. Then they got a print of it, and we're going to play it at this theater. Well, the theater burnt down, and now, like, in the movie, there are little flickers and flashes of, like, pentagrams and curses and stuff. It's, of course, it feels like it's to build the mystique around this movie, but it is preventing me from watching it.
Kind of
That-
sounds like trying to do a Blair Witch type of thing,
Right.
full background.
Yeah, I was gonna say you that's exactly the film that I immediately went to, because I was like, if you figure if this would have been 99 pre expansive internet that it is now, that everybody would have been like, they would have put a mockuseries on some
Mhm.
channel like they did
Yeah.
for Blair Witch, and everybody would have been completely buying into this that is something is completely wrong. This is all true, and then people are going to show up at the premiere and go, "You're supposed to be dead."
I just looked up this movie, Andy. Okay,
Yeah.
Antrim. It has the tagline, "The deadliest film ever made."
Right.
Okay, it has a 4.8 out of 10 on IMDb. So
Yeah, not a good score.
no, I think they're reaching for something. They're like, our movie sucks. How can we get people to actually watch it?
Yeah.
So,
But
Okay,
I think
it's not bad.
I think I'll wait until COVID-19 kind of passes before I watch this movie, just because
just to be safe.
I don't want any kind of weird stuff out there.
You don't want bad mojo in your house. You want to be able to
No.
watch it outside your house.
That's right. That's right.
I'm not bringing this into here.
I'll go sit in a parking lot somewhere and watch it on my phone, the way movies were meant to be seen.
Then we need an amuse-bouche of
It's
Antrim after that.
True cinema there, Andy.
With little like flashes and flickers while
Yes.
I'm doing the amuse bouche, so it's like my amuse bouche is cursed.
Instead of pentagrams, it's the Quibi logo. But again, I think a lot of horror movies try to do this, where they're like, "Oh, something spooky happened on set. Maybe the film's cursed. I don't know." Like, there's The Conjuring is one of the latest ones that has all this stuff. Like, like the actual family that was the film is based around showed up on set, and weird stuff started happening, and they heard weird phone calls when they were on the phone with them. I'm like, sure they did. Sure, why not?
Yeah. Scary.
Spooky.
Spooky.
And I think you run into the instance that people automatically assume curse and bad things happening when you're wrapping around like a horror film. Because I mean, you reference like the Fast and the Furious and the tragic death that was Paul Walker, but they keep moving them, keep making these movies, and nobody's like, oh, but these movies are because Paul Walker. I'm like, no, accidents happen. You just don't really talk about it because it's not a horror movie, so everybody just thinks everything is evil in the horror genre.
That was another thing they talked about on the show. Is it was like, they had 4 categories. It's like horror movies that are rumored to be cursed, horror movies that are pulled off without a hitch, regular movies that are rumored to be cursed, and then movies that have, I just hit my microphone, movies that have no problem whatsoever. And it's like, which are the ones you're going to draw more attention to? The horror movies that have this element of cursed next to them, because it just builds that up even more than the normal movies that are cursed, because it's like, oh, well, somebody died on the set of Superman, or like that Jeff Altman biopic that's never going to get made, the Allman Brothers one that's never going to get made, because lots of crazy stuff have been happening behind the scenes of that. But
where's the cursed rom-com I've been expecting to hear about?
Oh, you mean like that Pretty Woman when that hooker died in that room next door to where they were shooting?
Yeah, right.
Or The Ghost in 3 Men and a Baby.
The Ghost in 3 Men and a Baby.
That should be season 2 of Cursed Films, 3 Men and a Baby.
That ghost is not real.
How do you know?
There again, watching it on Blu-ray, not that
I was gonna say,
it's totally, on VHS, oh my god, it looks like something, but when you can see what it is clearly,
yeah, it's like a cardboard cutout.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's all it was, because if I remember correctly, it was just like a cutout of like Ted Danson or something. I don't remember. It was one of the guys, and it's like,
why is that in the scene though?
I even remember being as a kid, like watching it, even on bad TVs that they were then. I'm like, that is not a kid.
It's a ghost.
Or a ghost, yeah.
apparently that reference is a deleted scene from what I've heard. I don't know.
All right. Should we wrap this thing up with overall thoughts on cursed films? Is this actually a real thing?
No.
I don't think so. I think it's just terribly unfortunate coincidences or accidents that happen on these sets that make for really good side stories, but just haunting and It's not a curse, just a tragedy.
No, so you should have gotten a film buff like priest and be like, okay, now are these cursed, and get their perspective.
Well, again, with a lot of this series, they pretty much outright say no, there's not a curse on them. Like, again, what would you title this series if you didn't call it Cursed Films? Like a series of unfortunate accidents films? Like
Crazy coincidences.
They had to call it cursed films because a series of unfortunate events was already taken.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and then on-set accidents, that's not very subtle.
Yeah.
That just sounds like a VH1 documentary.
That's
or
exactly
like
right.
one of those videos, those old VHS that you would get with like a magazine subscription.
All right, so let's wrap it up with, I want to throw it out to everyone because we're all sitting at home. We're probably bored. We're watching a lot of movies, hopefully. Andy, I'll throw it off to you first. If you want to give us a recommendation of something that you've watched recently and where people can find it.
Yeah, so I will talk a little bit about this one right now because I'm going to be talking a lot about this one on an upcoming episode of my podcast, Fat Dude Digs Flicks, the Criterion Break with Andy and Blake.
Shameless plug.
That's right. That's like how I threw that in there. But Portrait of a Lady on Fire is currently streaming on Hulu. It was one that we did not get here in Sioux Falls, South Dakota during last year's award season. Didn't really get up for any awards. But man, oh man, this movie is fantastic. Beautiful, haunting love story I just thought it was breathtaking. And that you can find it on Hulu right now. It'll be coming out on Criterion Blu-ray and DVD in June, I believe. But yeah, totally worth checking out. Wonderful, wonderful movie.
All right, Brian, you got one?
But the only thing I've had an opportunity to watch here absolutely recently, and that was even painful just trying to do it with 2 5-year-olds, is I was actually trying to watch Sonic the Hedgehog. And I don't know. I honestly, as weird as this sounds, I actually want to try to rewatch it without having the kids around, where I don't have to pause it like every 5 minutes. But I will certainly say it was better than I expected it to be. It is something that I would actually maybe encourage people to watch, especially if they've got kids. It does remind me of the 90s Jim Carrey, putting on a good solid character performance. I actually didn't think that James Marsden actually didn't do too bad, especially having to be toe-to-toe with Jim Carrey. I mean, he's a feat in his own, and be able to keep up with that. I am definitely glad that they updated the graphics and fixed the glitch that was Sonic. But actually, it wasn't too bad. I would actually recommend maybe people at least check it out, especially if you've got kids.
I'm glad that people went to go see that after they dumped all that money in to fix it.
Yeah.
It would have been really shitty if they would have just said, now it loses money.
Right. No, and I completely agree. And when I saw when they corrected what Sonic was supposed to look like, and they listened to the people as opposed to just saying "bug off, we're just making our movie," then yeah, absolutely, I do completely agree that I'm glad that people did go see it, because at least the filmmakers were listening to the fans, the people who wanted to see that movie.
Right.
Yeah, I've heard good things about it. I actually do want to check out Sonic the Hedgehog. I've heard some fun things about it, and heard it's a nice return to form for Jim Carrey.
Very much so, and that's where I want to actually go back and rewatch it without the kids, so I can actually try to appreciate it in its full structure without background noise and pausing it every 10 minutes.
All right, Dom, do you have anything you want to recommend for people to watch?
I'm really late to the bandwagon, but I recently watched Parasite, and I actually really did enjoy it. It's one of the few Best Pictures that I would say actually deserves Best Picture.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And I feel proud of the fact that I saw that movie before Dom did.
Well, I'm really behind on what I need to see, but it was one of those movies that I didn't realize how tense I was until after it was done.
Yeah.
Just the simple fact that they're sitting in the living room and you're just like, oh my God, these people can come home at any moment. But I'm not looking forward to an Americanized series, though, about it. I don't foresee how or why they would need to do that.
Because they can, but I mean, the fact that they got Bong Joon-ho on board to make it, at least it gives me a little bit, as opposed to just being like, we bought the property, we're going to do it our way. At least he's on board to hopefully make sure that it's crafted to his caliber.
Hopefully, but
Yeah, what's up with Hollywood wanting to make series out of Bong Joon-ho movies? They made a Snowpiercer series. Now they're doing Parasite. Let's get an
apparently,
Okja series. I don't know.
Because they can.
Yeah.
They'll make an Okja series and be like, so we made this movie for Netflix. Now go watch the series on Netflix.
On Amazon Prime.
right.
That's when Netflix buys Amazon Prime.
Yeah. The one I'll throw out, this just came on VOD recently and is on Blu-ray and DVD and all that fun stuff, but no one wants to leave the house to go buy those right now. So watch it on VOD. This is a VFW, latest film from Joe Bagos. Basically, Dom was not a fan of it. I thought it was a lot of fun. Basically, this mutant punk teenagers invade this VFW, and bunch of these old vets kick their ass. That's the movie.
It had a very good late 80s, early 90s feel to it. And it was more, it wasn't the story that I didn't like, it was technical things. There was a few shots here and there that I was just like, that seemed weird or out of place. And I felt some of the acting was a little forced, especially since the people that they have, because I think William Sanderson it's William Sanderson, right?
William Sadler?
Yeah, sorry, I was thinking the other Williams. Yeah, William Sadler is phenomenal, and I think it's like he didn't show up. I don't know. I was maybe expecting a little bit more from him, but
Do you find watching certain movies harder to watch because you see them more from a technical aspect from the director side of things than just a movie fan?
Yeah, I tend to gravitate more towards if I just want to shut my brain off, I'll watch something from the 80s because I'm not analyzing it. But if it's something like VFW, I'm sitting there thinking, how the hell did they get $1 million to do this? They probably didn't have that much, but it's stuff like that.
Your response is, if they can do that, where's my money?
Right, exactly. I'm like, you can do for a lot less.
Did you watch his other recent film, Bliss, at all?
I haven't yet. I've heard that's pretty good. So.
Yeah. Again, I like both pretty equally. It's a very different movie than VFW was, though.
I think my expectations on VFW were a little higher than they should have been. So.
Yeah. Again, that's on VOD right now and Blu-ray, DVD as well. So. All right. Before we give our plugs for Backlot, I'm going to throw it off to Andy to give his shameless plugs one more time. Andy, where can the people find you online?
Well, if you are interested, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter on Fat Dude Digs Flicks. I also have a podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher Radio. Just do a search for Fat Dude Digs Flicks. There's the main show, the Let's Talk About show, where we'll talk about a movie with a random guest. Random movie, random guest, just talking about how that movie has impacted them and their life. And then the Criterion Break with Andy and Blake, where Blake Ginnathan of Backlot 605 and I dig into the Criterion Collection and the Criterion Channel. Check it out.
Yes, and Andy, you will be back on the show very, very, very soon. And then so I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I'm so excited for that one.
So am I. Brian is not.
Have you watched the movie yet, Brian?
No.
Oh God, I can't wait.
Okay. Well, I'm going to give a little context here. So in May, we're going to be doing a mini series on camp movies. So since no one can go to camp this year, we thought
Since we can't get outside,
why not talk about camp movies? So we're going to be talking about our favorite summer camp movies, but the one we're going to talk about with Andy, and Dom, I know you've seen this one, Sleepaway Camp. Brian has not seen the film and does not know of the ending.
Oh, yeah.
well, and told me too that I'm supposed to record myself while I watch
Yep.
the last 5 minutes, and I'm
Yep.
like, I'm kind of disturbed by this idea.
I saw when I was, 15, 16, and it's still, I can tell you exactly where I was sitting when that happened.
It's so great.
Yes.
I've actually met Melissa Rose. She is a sweetheart. So
Yeah.
she loves playing that up too. So
Yes. So Brian, you have to record yourself while
Yeah,
watching Sleepwalking.
You asked me if I was prepared. I'm like, oh shoot, which episode? Which episode? Never mind. I know which episode.
Yes. All right. Dom, where can people find you online and some of your films if they want to check those out here during our quarantine?
there's a few on Amazon Prime. I think there's like 4 or 5 up there right now. Just search for either my name or Warworks Productions. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, although I've been trying to stay off of them because of the whole political climate. But yeah, if you hit me up, my productions have kind of shut down right now. We're in a holding pattern for everything. So I've just been getting some writing done.
What? You've been held up by all of this too, just like all the big guys?
Yeah, it's like everything just like crashed, and now I'm like, all right, good thing I have a day job.
All right, Brian, do you want to give a shout out to where people can follow you online?
Basically follow me on Letterboxd and Instagram. LP Freak on Instagram and LP Freak Forever on Letterboxd.
Yeah, and you can find me on Instagram, Casey_the horror guy. You can find Backlot 605 on backlot605.com for our latest movie news, reviews, discussions, articles. Everything is up on the website there. You can find the podcast on Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, and YouTube, and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, Backlot605.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you again, Dom, Andy. Thank you both for joining us for this spooky, spooky, cursed episode.
A lot of fun.
First episode.
There's your intro to the podcast.
There it is. All right. Thank you once again for joining us, guys. Brian,
Do it.
see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye now.